Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and today, once again, we are talking movies with Professor O. And how are you doing today, Professor?
Doing great up here in Oklahoma, ready for the fall to slowly roll in, but it's slow. It's not happening yet.
Yeah, we've noticed a little cooler temperatures even around here. So, and I guess depending on where you are, you may not understand our delight at this because we live in a part of the country where winter does not come until generally December, and then it's fairly mild. But one of our fellow nerds is from New Zealand who has their seasons are reversed from ours, and it gets very, very, very hot there by the time we're getting any kind of cool weather here. That's
And that is it's funny. I was thinking of that with Australia and Australia too, where John Wayne's father mysteriously gets sent to Australia. That's an interesting
yeah.
in The Quiet Man.
I love that scene. We're going to talk about that and much more in The Quiet Man. It is a classic film that at the time it was being made they thought would never make any money, and it made money, and it's something that when I was a kid they played it every St. Patrick's Day, I think, on on
that
local
makes sense.
TV. So that's the way we think about that. I want to mention before we get started too that yesterday was National Podcast Day, and there's a day for everything, isn't there? So
Yeah,
we missed it by one day. So
yeah.
our
That's
chance of
hilarious.
fame.
Darn it. No free coffee. That's uh,
Yeah,
that's
what
amazing.
would you
There's a
give?
day
What
for
would you give
everything.
away for Podcast Day? Your opinion.
We
Um,
gave we give that away for free all the
we
time.
we
Yeah,
do.
but your opinion, you're
Way
right.
we're working in here.
And it's a
Oh, there was something that I wanted to say, and we are politically neutral on this channel, so I'm not making any judgment as to political things. But I got word the other day that the president made what was it, $16 million in a settlement with YouTube, and it made me think at the time that I'm doing this wrong. He got money for not being on YouTube, and we don't make any money for being on YouTube. There's something wrong here.
there's something wrong with that.
Okay, let's talk about The Quiet Man. The Quiet Man, of course, starring John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara, and it has a perfect cast. It was done by Republic Pictures, the first picture that they ever did on location. They did everything in what's now the CBS Studio Center in Los Angeles. It was bought by at that time it was Republic Pictures, and Gene Autry bought it, eventually sold it to CBS, and that's how it got there. But a lot of the old westerns for TV were recorded at Republic Studios because they had all of the Wild West stuff, because that was mostly what Republic did, was westerns. And this is the first picture they ever did that wasn't a western or an action picture, and they were determined that it wasn't going to make any money.
And they were going to
And
save money because they were sure it wasn't going to make any money. So they were
right, absolutely, absolutely. But I want to say something about this cast. Barry Fitzgerald, who plays Michelin in this, and he actually his brother played Reverend Playfair. That was
ah,
yeah, that was Arthur Shields. Barry Fitzgerald's name
that's
was actually
right.
something like Jonathan Shields or something, and changed to Barry Fitzgerald. And anyway, Arthur Shields was his brother playing Playfair. And let's see, the assistant priest, Father Paul, and Hugh Forbes, which was Charles Fitzsimmons and James O'Hara, were younger brothers of Maureen O'Hara.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And
That's
and this is one that I found rather interesting. The old man who is sick in bed until the fight starts, and then he's out he runs out of his bed cheering the fight, and then at the end when everybody's waving to the camera, he's holding up his cane. That was Francis Ford. He was the older brother of John Ford,
That's
and
exactly right. Yeah.
he was like 71 at the time, playing like he was 100, and he had been in like 26 of John Ford's movies, and the two of them never spoke. For some
That's
reason, they had some kind of rift between them, and they would not speak to each other. And even though he cast him in 26 of his movies, all they did was nod each other at the end of a shooting day and went on their own ways. So nobody
that
knows what the deal was with that.
you
But
know that I
uh,
watched the making of film on this. If you get the old DVD, the making of film,
yeah,
and it's old enough. The DVD came out probably 2000, and at least one DVD, but it's got some special features. But
I have it
it's
here.
not subtitled, which is that's the yeah. And the Leonard Maltin does a really good documentary on the making of, and I think he interviewed one of the assistant directors and actually assistant director to one of the cat yeah one of the cast members was the I think the brother again another brother connection with
Yeah,
with the crew. I think it was Victor McLaughlin's brother could have been the assistant director, but
yes,
they
I believe
figured okay then okay so he
I believe that's
figures
right.
so John Ford says, I want everybody together. First shot. We're all in Ireland, everybody together. And they figure, well, Francis Ford doesn't even have a speaking part. They're not going to, I think he may have said one word or something like that. But
Well, he was a
of all these,
he was a silent movie actor in his
ex-
heyday, and a director as well in silent films. So yeah, he didn't have a single line, but you could tell that he had quite some experience in acting without dialogue.
So yeah, so there it is. Victor McLaughlin's brother says, okay, we're going to get all the actors together except for Francis Ford. In movies, in filmmaking, you don't want to waste time. There's no,
Yeah,
you don't want to get somebody. And sure enough, that's the first shot. John Ford said, "Where's my brother?" Where's my brother? And
yeah,
so they had to roust him up. They got him in about 10 minutes, and and off they went.
yeah,
Apparently one of the early things they shot, one of the first things they shot was where John Wayne pulls Maureen O'Hara for 5 miles by her hair and her hands
yeah,
and lifts her up and mainly drags her. That was one of the early things they shot, and she actually kind of got hurt in
yeah. She got
hurt her
bruised.
back. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But but yeah, that just
Well, there are two stories on that, by the way. One
ah
is that John Ford thought that they had improvised that John Wayne dragging her across the way, and it was not improvised. It was something they had rehearsed with each other to make sure that she didn't get hurt badly.
oh that's
And
good. That's
and so that was one thing. The other thing is that the crew thought it would be funny to take basically sheep dip and put it in the path so that they
oh.
would drag her through the worst of it, and would not let her change clothes after. So in
Oh,
the scenes following that, she was all stained up with sheep droppings.
yeah, that's not funny.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
She was she was a camper. Right? She did great. She put up with a lot,
She did.
and
She gave
yeah,
back as good as she got, though, in one
that's
time
true.
when John Ford was trying to get something out of her. And you know how directors will do; they'll sometimes make the actors
Oh,
angry so that they will work out. And she shot it back a little more profane than he had shot it to her. So the lines were drawn here.
she
But
was. Yeah, you're right. He
yeah,
was famous for that, giving it, yeah, breaking, yeah, making them mad or breaking them, or trying, to get the performance he wanted. He was absolutely famous for that. And
okay,
yet
two more.
most of
Oh, go ahead.
and
Go
yet
ahead.
most of the actors he worked with loved him. Maureen O'Hara definitely could get angry at him, knew that side of him, but knew he was also trying to get an excellent performance,
Yeah.
and that he was a consummate artist.
Yeah, there's nothing like being successful to kind of gloss over some of your
The
shortcomings.
Gross.
But there are a couple more people on the cast that I want to mention. Mildred Nadwick plays the widow, and she was 46 at the time and played an old person. I was thinking about this because I had seen her on. She was one of the Snoop sisters. You remember that in the in 70s TV,
Ah,
and she was, you know, played obviously an old person then, and then an old person in 1951 when this was shot. And I thought, you know, how old was she when she died? Was she, you know, and she really was.
yeah,
She was close to
46.
90, but she was 46 at the time this was made.
Wow. And she does a terrific part.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone, every part, no part is small. And somebody said they're only small actors. There's no small
Yes.
part. And that's small is not quite the right word, but that's the and she was fantastic in that part.
Yes.
You're still wondering about her at the end. She gives that line. She wants John Ford to beat the guy up, to beat Victor McLaughlin up, but then she repeats Victor McLaughlin's line, "The finest man in the country," which, and at
Yeah.
the end of the day, there they are courting. You could and it takes a special actor to open the door to that kind of spark, especially over a character that such as like Victor McLaughlin. You
Yeah.
kind of want to hate him. Yeah.
There are a lot of quotable lines in here, and we'll get to that in a minute. I think that we need to talk about this. But one more person on the cast that I
Yeah.
think is worthy of mention is Ken Curtis. He was the
Oh,
accordion player in the bar, and
yes.
also one of the singers. Most people, you know, remember him as Festus on Gunsmoke, but he was one of the Sons of the Pioneers, and before that, he was Frank Sinatra's replacement in the Tommy Dorsey Band. He was quite well known as a singer for a time, and in this, he's you know, that was him.
Oh, he
So
always comes
go
back to me in
go
the
back and look at
searchers.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's his singing and that's a yeah, I loved it when he walked in. Ken Curtis, and in the Searchers, he's also singing and plays a much more goofy character in a sense in the Searchers, but the singing connects them together. And its song was terrific. It just such an early song in there, just really well done.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
So
yeah, I'm a Ken Curtis fan. First time I saw Ken Curtis was as Festus, and then you go back and look at John Wayne films. Barry Fitzgerald was in an incredible John Ford film called The Long Voyage Home,
yes.
and wow, the that I'm trying to think. So many. Ward Bond might have been in there. There's so many
Yeah.
John Ford players. His usual cast. Victor McLaughlin. How do you exactly say that? I've been saying, yeah,
I've been
McLaughlin.
saying McLaughlin. I'm not certain if that's
I
correct
think
or
you are
not.
spot on right. I keep one that, yeah, McLaughlin. Um, I'm trying to think of another the John Ford. He might have been in a Long Voyage Home. Oh no, he's Fort Apache. He's incredible in
Okay.
Fort
Okay.
Apache.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I mean,
But yeah, he's
there's solid actors through this whole thing. There's a
oh
lot of these have been, you know, traveling along with John Ford with, you
right.
know, whatever he would do, and so it's kind of like it was with the people that followed Bogart, which interestingly Ward Bond was one of in Maltese Falcon. He was the
Exactly.
detective. Yeah.
Right. That's
So
exactly right. Oh, what a great! It's interesting the familiar connections with the reverends, and Arthur Shields was great as the more, I guess, Church of England type of the more Protestant reverend.
yes, yes, which is
Cheer like
interesting.
your Protestants.
Yeah.
That was so funny at the end of the film when the bishop comes to visit, and there's and hardly
Yeah.
anybody goes to the church anymore,
Right.
and Ward Bond gets everybody together. Cheer like your Protestants.
Yeah, there was a bit of the holy water font, which
Right.
was outside the little church. The church that John Ford had picked to film was a Protestant church, and so
Ah,
they didn't want a holy water font put inside the church.
oh,
And the
even for the movie.
Catholics didn't want a holy water font put in a Protestant church. And so they came up with this compromise to put it outside. And that's the reason it was outside.
Well, this is near the beginning of the film, kind of
Yeah.
getting into the events of the film themselves.
Patty Fingers with the
How
holy water. Yeah.
right? How much of a breach of protocol? Yeah, how forward is that for John Wayne, especially in terms of Catholic faith? John Wayne reach his hand in there and say, "Oh, you're going to touch my hand to then cross yourself." How is that? Was he being pretty darn forward at the time?
At the time, maybe now the film was done in 1951, but it took place probably in the mid 20s as far as the cars that they used and other things. So that was they never made it clear as to what year they were in, honestly. But
Right.
the best guess was mid 20s, which would indicate what he did, the fact that everybody's still riding horses and things like that.
And you gather maybe that Ireland has broken away from England. That would have happened in like 1921. And
Yeah.
we were talking about the English Civil War. Well, there was the Irish Civil War, and I think 1921 is the date for when the Free State of Ireland comes up. And they mentioned the IRA, so I think you're spot on right with that. But I was just wondering how much of a breach of protocol, if he, that how bad a thing John Wayne had done. It sounds like it was a minor thing, no big deal, but he definitely wanted to get to know that redhead that he'd seen
Yeah.
tending the sheep. What a shot that was! I mean, you're going back
Yeah.
to some of the early shots of the film. It's just what, and apparently John Wayne. You look at some of these things. I mean, John Ford. He could be so picky. Yeah, we talked about he did it with everybody. His cinematographers
Right.
too. There was a cinematographer that was setting up shots in a western, and John Wayne was furious at him. Just this, John Ford. John Ford was
John Ford.
furious at him. Yeah, just talked him down in front of the whole crew, and said, I don't make you're just filming postcards. I don't film postcards. I craft a film. I'm telling a story here
Yeah.
through picture. This is not a post. And you look at some of those shots though at the beginning of this film, it's like they're incredible Irish postcards. And, so it
Really
is.
was.
Yeah,
But I mean,
yeah.
it's a beautiful place that you couldn't help if you filmed it. And
No,
they, the Ford also insisted they do it in Technicolor rather than the true cheapy color that Republic Pictures
oh,
had.
the two sheet,
Uh,
two
yeah,
two strip color.
yeah,
What's funny when you mentioned Republic in my subconscious as I'm thinking of a Republic film, and it's like you go back to when you're maybe watching movies on TCM, is before streaming, and you're watching it,
mhm,
and the first thing you see, and I think this goes way back to even when we were kids, and the first thing you see is Republic, and you go, it's going to be kind of an uninteresting western. You kind of go, okay. I'm RKO. I'm going, ooh, this could be kind of cool. This could be a creepy
yeah,
science fiction film. Or Hammer going, ooh, all the studio just sets the table, and
right.
Republic never set an interesting table for me. And I don't even think they did low budget exploitation science fiction films. They may have done one or two, but not many. It
No,
was,
they did mostly action adventure and more westerns than anything. They had Gene Autry, which was their big sell, and
yeah.
some others. I think they had Hoot Gibson, which
Uh,
which the only reason anybody would know anything about Hoot Gibson was they used to be mentioned in the Beverly Hillbillies, and because
okay.
by the '60s he was already someone nobody'd heard of. He had been a Western star in silence,
That's
and
what that's
he wore a very big hat that wasn't blocked, and kind of a Dan Blocker hat, and
oh right. Yeah.
that was Hoot Gibson,
That was
and of
yeah.
course it made a good sound. But anyway, the problem with Republic was that they were used to making low budget pictures. This is the first one they'd ever done on location, and
Right.
John Ford was wanting to have this picture made, and because of his relationship with John Wayne went to the people at Republic and said, this picture isn't going to make any money, but we'll make you another one that will. And so
Right.
that
Yeah.
they did Rio Grande after this with Maureen O'Hara, and
Right.
it was successful, and so they
Right.
would get their money back. That was the idea. But it sent John Ford into kind of a depression during this. I don't know what this movie is going to turn out to be. I don't know if it's going to be any good. And he was not used to working with second string studios, and so he was concerned with the gaff that he was getting from Republic and this film that he wanted to make all his life, and was
Oh, you
afraid
kind of
that it
feel
was
for
just going to go into the ash heap of history.
And what is it about that? The things in life we're so excited for, and this is going to be great. I'm going to go back to Ireland, and then
Yeah.
the weather's miserable. He's got the
Yeah.
trepidation of working with the studio, making the money. The weather's he gets sick so bad that he's in a hospital. Has to go. He's hospitalized. It's miserable. He said, "I had more fun in Korea." Making a kind of a documentary film. This is Korea in the Korean War, I had
Yeah.
more fun there. I mean, but that there's something that about life that just reminded me of that the things you get so excited for, this is going to be perfect, and it definitely was not that. But they made an incredible film.
They
It
really
is a
did.
yeah. I mean, it's a product of its time, and we'll get to that. But nonetheless, it's just an incredible film. And just from the get go, the you're kind of it gets to be breathtaking. The mother's narration to set the table.
Hmm.
The father's narration, just a little bit of narration to get us there. The people you go to that and now and this is one of the things we've lost with Google Maps, going to ask for directions, and then people would argue about which way to send you,
Yes.
and that really did happen. And then they
Oh,
bring the same people back at the end of the film.
it
So
happened in northern Louisiana. I mean,
yeah,
you go to
yeah,
where the
exactly.
old church used to be, and it burned down last year. But yeah,
That's not the way to go.
yeah,
Yeah, you want to go by the best Cajun restaurant that there ever was.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Now you take all these little curvy roads, and it'll get you there faster because there's fewer stoplights. Yeah,
yeah.
I know how that works. But
They
they did
shot
that well
Southern
there.
Comfort. Yeah.
We know where we got it from, I guess.
Oh, it's just tremendous. So he instantly smitten with Maureen O'Hara,
Yeah,
and just the shots, and you're right, they're expressive shots. You can't help but be a little bit postcardy, and you got to be. But then it's the expressiveness of the shots, and then instantly wants to buy the money from. I mean, but buy the not the money, buy the cottage yeah,
right. It was the
from
cottage you grew up in. Yeah,
right, the cottage he grew up in. Yeah. And you just kind of and you just wish it's like one of those things where you just wish you had the means to do what he's doing. It's just to go back. He's made some money. We don't really know where it's from. I thought it was fascinating. How the heck does Barry Fitzgerald even hazard a guess that he's from Cincinnati? It's because I think didn't he say you're from Cincinnati? And John Wayne said, "No, Pittsburgh." Yes.
yeah. He that was basically all the geography that he knew. He would throw
Oh,
things in, and they did that in two or three places in the film where he would make basically a claim that he had no backing for. He's
I
obviously a millionaire because he's an American.
I thought
So
we were going full on My Fair Lady here. No, yeah, with where the speech
yeah,
therapist could tell which block you grew up in. Yeah, you're right. I think that's the best he could do. Pretty close though.
yeah.
And oh golly, then you go to the bar, and just so many precious things. It goes to the bar. Well, yeah, what buys the property, and then yeah, buys the property from under. Now, how would you say that was a name, a good old Irish name for Victor McLagan's name? He goes by, of course, Sean is easier, but what is what? No, that's easy. No, his name
He
is
was Red Will Danaher.
yeah, Daniger. I'm thinking of the name that was the name that was Barry Fitzgerald's name is kind of a
Oh, Micheline,
interesting
which
Nicolene.
yeah,
Nicolene, yes.
lean in the Irish is means young, and so it would be young Michael was basically his name.
Oh, right, right. That makes
And
sense. Young.
O'Flynn, his name was Flynn, but they had the O indicating that he was a junior. So that means
Ah,
he was Michael Flynn's son, but he was little Michael, uh, son of Flynn.
that very
That's how
important
the
that
name
you know
worked
your
out.
your Irish heritage. I should with a name that starts with O. I should know, but I did not realize that designated the younger. That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's
that's
yeah,
also where Catherine comes from. It's young Kathy. It's um, they have certain things like that. Colleen means little girl, and some people are just named that. You know.
so O'Hara, of course, she's Irish,
Yes.
but yeah, but the O'Hara, that's fascinating. Ah, just apparently, I was just thinking of the apparently John Ford even had trouble. The film was so popular when it was being shot there. You're right that interesting to hear the two churches and where to put the holy water, but it was incredible. He had trouble with crowd control. People would he
Yeah.
would use the crowd at times to watch the fight at the end, but still he had trouble
Yeah,
keeping.
there were some people who were supposed to be just hired as production assistants that ended up on the film and
Yeah,
didn't weren't supposed to. But they did do some things on purpose. John Wayne's children were in the wagon during the fight scene where they were riding the wagon as everybody was going to watch the fight.
and Kathleen Maureen O'Hara was she connected to the couple of kids or it seemed like those kids that were when they were watching the race was a brilliant, incredible. The horse race was incredible. That's one of
Yeah.
the best, amazingly shot. And so she's
Directed by John Wayne. That was his first directorial bit because that was during Ford's depression and illness,
yeah.
and so John Wayne went and filmed the horse scene. And with his permission, but then when he saw the dailies on it, he decided he was feeling a lot better and wanted to come back and do the rest of the film.
Maybe because John Wayne did an incredible job. Maybe he said,
Yeah.
"I better get back before this guy," because that horse I'm thanks for putting that into context, B, because that I had read the John Wayne thought I thought what, and so now that you put two and two together, Ford's in the hospital and John Wayne directs that sequence and it's incredible. And I think, but the kids Maureen O'Hara is with is another set of kids related to or connected to Catherine Maureen O'Hara. Might have been John Wayne's kid, but that's right. That's right. I think one of those was John Wayne's kids, where she was at the race that John Wayne directed, which was incredible, the horse
Right.
race. And so she has to explain a little bit about how important, the kids are saying, put your sash out there, put your
Bonnet.
hat, your bonnet in the race. And she didn't want to do it. She finally does it. It's painful. It's not picked up. But that reminds me that I was trying to think of, how to get a handle on this film. And I think traditions. And I kept thinking when all the old traditions from, you know, uh, Fiddler
Fiddler
on
on
the
the Roof.
Roof
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, kept coming up, which of course figures with Ireland. So much is bound in tradition. And you've got this clash of tradition. Here comes John Wayne from the New World that sees these, the frustrate these people build, like you mentioned, they build walls with rocks. They're rock headed, and all they do is build divisions between themselves, which goes to the history of Ireland, Protestant, Catholic, IRA. You get, yeah, and so he's so frustrated with this. But those traditions are important. And that's one thing John Wayne has to learn is how important the tradition of the dowry is in the film.
Yeah.
And that's such an old. I think in some respects, I was thinking of students potentially watching this film. That's such an old term. You lose track of what that means to the family, what that means to the woman, what that means to the father of the bride, the dowry.
Yeah.
So many traditions in the film. That film is surrounded and the classic traditions. Am I missing any, or were there some other? What are some other traditions that when you think about, yeah,
Oh gosh, one of
traditions
my
in
favorite lines in this is where the Father Lonigan is trying to get Sean and Danaher to shake hands, and John Wayne offers his hand, and Danaher doesn't, and he says, "Take his hand, or I'll read your name in the mass." Which, from what I know about when names are read in the mass, that's usually prayers for the dead. So
I did not know. I knew it was not a good thing.
Yeah.
You can tell it. And you know it's and the other thing, it's funny. You kind of right after that scene, so they shake hands. He grabs him in the hardest grip, and John Wayne said, "I always liked a firm grip," and
Yeah.
you can tell they're killing each other. And to John Wayne's kind of sensibilities, maybe to be a little self, he can be, understanding of himself, make fun of himself a little bit, is after they shake hands, and then he's going to shake hands with the next guy. He says, "Wait a minute, I got to let the blood come back into my hand," admitting that that was a really hard thing to go through. And to me, that maybe a little bit of the new world part, maybe a minor thing, but that John Wayne can admit that that was a heck of a hard handshake.
Yeah.
But and so you got, yeah, a real clash, but that's a great example of the tradition.
Yeah. Well, an interesting point about those scenes in
The mask,
the fight where they
right?
were certainly
Oh,
that's another little trick by of course John Ford, who went to Victor McLaughlin, who is not a uh, overly violent individual. He's actually a fairly gentle fellow, and he got him mad, saying, you know, the shoot today was such garbage. We're not even going to be able to do a decent fight scene on this. And so it made him mad. And of course, he had the night to stew over it. And the next morning, when they shot these scenes from the handshake to the fight, these were all, he was already in mad at the director, but that was able to come through on the screen.
his blood was stirred up, and that
Yeah.
that that is one of the best examples, because you hear of these examples where John Wayne has been brought low by John Ford, just tattered, tears him to shreds on the set, humiliated on the set. You've
Yeah.
heard, and the John Ford, yeah, almost wondered when was he trying to get something out of the part, and when was he just enjoying it in a malicious sort of way. And
You never know.
and yeah, with him you didn't know, but at the end of the day, you had an incredible film. But that's such a good example of what he was trying to do to get him mad, and it just, oh, that fight scene. So
John Wayne
that
said
was
that this was the hardest picture he ever made, only because he had to be straight man to everybody else's comedy in this.
exactly everybody else. And he did an incredible. So
He
when you
did.
finally do see him smile and enjoy himself, you really enjoy it along with him, because
Yes.
he's got to be that straight man, either not quite understanding, or he didn't get the joke. I mean, he didn't get to deliver the joke. He's
Yeah.
constant. That's exactly right. Constantly the straight man. So the one thing I did, because I was thinking of students and the dowry, and I looked that up, and of course you know how much that means to Mary Kate, Maureen O'Hara. Totally, it means the world. So and a lot of our viewers will know what a dowry is, but it is, what the father, usually the father saves up, works hard, saves up a small fortune to then give to the groom, who has courted his daughter, as a, as kind of and it kind of ends up connecting to the worth of the bride. What is the bride worth? There's kind of a connection to the, not just self-worth, which should not be connected to money at all, but nonetheless it does get all tied together. And so she had to make her own dowry, because I can't remember how long their father has been. It sounds like their
Yeah, they
father
don't
had,
they don't say, yeah.
yeah, all the parents died fairly young. You feel like John Wayne lost his mother when he was 12, over when they came to America. His father in a penal colony, or gets
Yeah,
into
that
trouble in
was it was a
Australia.
funny line that he's introduced to Father Lonigan, and Father Lonigan says, I remember your grandfather. He died in a penal colony in Australia, and your father was a good man too." So
It was a good man. I'll see you in mass. That was yeah, definitely.
yeah.
But yeah, so the dowry, the tradition, and so a lot is connected, and he just doesn't get it. We don't do dowries anymore. You're your own woman. You don't need to bring anything to this marriage but yourself. I love you. I love who you are. You don't
Yeah.
need to bring anything. But she wants her furniture. John Wayne maybe, or maybe he kind of gets the furniture, but he just does not get the
Well, he doesn't
350.
care about the money. He's got plenty
No.
of money, and he feels like what he has is blood money already. So he doesn't want to have to fight for money anymore. And so
And,
forget the money. You know, I can provide for you, kind of thing.
and that sets up the central conflict of the film. That just what this, that, at its core, some of what the film is about. Um, because she feels like if you are not willing to fight for to fight for this money, you are a coward. You're not willing to fight for me. And I can't
Yes.
remember exactly. She had a line that was close to that. After they oh, so many beautiful things. So they're miserable. He doesn't want to fight again. And I thought one of the best, and of course, why doesn't he want to fight again? Because he killed somebody in the ring
Yeah.
when he was a fighter. Wait, I'm trying to remember, was this Trooper Dan or something? I'm trying to
Trooper
remember his
Thorn.
Trooper Thorn as a fighter, right? And the Protestant minister, of course, loves fighting, loves sports. He's got clippings of Trooper Thorn
Yes.
and where John Wayne had killed a man in the States in the ring. And John Wayne, he's just miserable for having done that.
And
The
so
guy
finally, that's
had
essentially how he makes the decision to go ahead and fight Danaher as he goes to Playfair and lays it out. He said, "You know what's happened. What should I do about this?"
right,
And he's educated on the culture that's there,
right.
and then says, "You're not going to kill Danaher. He's got a jaw like concrete and a mean right hook or whatever." And so he gives him a few pointers as to how to actually fight and survive the fight with Danaher. So they're pretty well matched, as they showed later.
Oh, absolutely well matched. And so, but what was so neat, what I love about this film too, is that even after that talk, by the father, he's by the, I guess, minister, but yeah, he's still conflicted because he walks all day long,
Yeah.
kicking those brick walls. She talks to the priest, and they come together at night. They're both broken. They both love each other. They both want what they want. But for having killed somebody, he really doesn't want. He's afraid. He doesn't want the violence. He doesn't want
Yeah.
a fight where he could possibly kill. And she can't understand that, what man, kind of man won't fight for me. And in Ireland, everything's public.
Yeah.
Everything, this not
In this
fighting
small town,
for
or like any other small town, everybody knows everybody else's business.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, everybody's talking. Weren't they? Yeah, I loved it.
Well,
Yeah.
they pointed out in the very beginning when Micheline picks up Sean and drives him from the train station to Innisfree, and he doesn't recognize him at first, and so he's picking his brain as best he can to find out who he is and why he's going to Innisfree. And of course, Sean knows who he is to begin with and leads him along for a certain amount of time. But it does speak to the fact that there's going to be small town gossip. Just
Oh,
if
yeah,
somebody
God.
they don't know already comes into town, everybody's going to find out about him.
And if she can't get married, and of course people kind of imply, well, you're a spinster, and she hates that term, being called a spinster. And
Yeah,
she's worked so hard, saved her own dowry. We don't know what happened to the fathers, but she, even more meaningful, saves her own dowry. This is what I've worked on. This is proper. This is tradition. This is what we do. He has trouble understanding that point of view. Just beautifully set
yeah.
up. And then,
Probably the
but then,
parents died of old age because Victor McLaughlin is like 20 years older than Maureen O'Hara. So I have a feeling that either they wanted their ages to be a little closer together, or
good point.
they decided against him being her father.
He would be 20 years older, and that's a father-like figure, but still not the
Yeah.
father. That's not a, yeah. And so two broken people, they get together, they still haven't resolved anything, but they do care for each other. They're miserable. They realize she, I think, realizes he's trying to work through whatever this is of him that he won't fight for her. He it realizes he's trying to see her point of view. They do consummate their marriage. A couple of critics are disagreed as to whether they consummated their marriage on that night. I think by clues we see in the next morning, it's he's
They
so relaxed.
yes.
Yeah, I feel like they finally consummated the
The
marriage that
I think so, because the sleeping bag was not there anymore,
good.
and
You look at all the clues
that
that we.
was what she was telling Father Lonigan while he was trying to fish, and this is the only time in the movies that Gaelic has ever been spoken.
It was incredible. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm so glad you brought that up. That was and
and
talk
actually,
about
what she said to him, somebody translated it on one of these things, and what she actually said to him was, "My husband isn't sleeping with me, sleeping in a sleeping bag in the other room," and
right.
and so
That
that
makes sense.
gives the reaction from Father Lonigan. Well, that's a sin.
That's yeah, yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah,
So the other thing it reminds me when you these films, you're right. The clues they give you, no sleeping bag. The clues they had to give you back in the days of the production code. Invasion of the Body Snatchers has a morning after that's just the original Invasion with Dana Winter and I lost such a great actor.
yeah,
Anyway, the original and they and the you can there's just the light there's a special little glow and you
yeah.
can just tell as a viewer what's going on. Breakfast is being cooked and so what that makes it even more striking that she runs off. She says that line that we mentioned before, that I can't stay with a man who will not fight for my honor, something to that effect. She goes to the train station, and here's where a couple of critics take a couple of different points of view,
Yeah.
because you definitely can say the next part of the film is you could say, well, that's a part of its time. I mean, you've got John Wayne literally dragging her 5 miles after he gets her from the train. He's gonna and somehow things have got to be made right. He's got to do what he's got to do. And part of doing what he's got to do is dragging her through the muck, like you talked about.
Well, it starts with the train station. We'll talk about this in a second. I want to go back. I found the little
Yeah.
quote from she's speaking in Gaelic, and part of
Ah,
it is that in Gaelic it is like Shada sin, and he doesn't understand the term. He said bag, sleeping in a bag, and she says an English sleeping bag, father, with buttons. And he says, "Woman, Ireland may be a poor country, God help us, but here a married man sleeps in a bed, not a bag."
that's exactly right. And the buttons, I remember hearing that going buttons. Yeah, that's I guess you buttoned up the sleeping bag. And anyway, just you get the idea.
You
And
know,
that, yeah, when he returns from
in the
Gaelic
20s, I
English,
guess they didn't use zippers much for things like that.
or
But
Velcro was unheard of. That is. So yeah, that's and so yeah, that was a great yeah. And you remember that line? It's so striking because they come back from Gaelic, and that's the line he gives, and he's
yeah,
never going to catch that fish.
yeah. No, he never did. He was
No,
going for that salmon for 10 years, which of course salmon don't live 10 years, but that's not a big problem there. The deal is after they have had this night of suggested togetherness, she
right,
leaves in shame and gets on the
right.
train. He finds out because everybody in town knows what's going on. He finds that she's at the station. He rides out there and then walks her all the way back to Innisfree. And this is where
Right.
the town all gets they know from the time that they've left the train station that she's being dragged back into town,
And that a fight's
and
going to
that's
ensue.
the fight is going to ensue, and the he doesn't take her home, but rather finds where Danaher is working and throws her down in front of him and says,
That's
"Here's your sister. I don't want her anymore."
and that's such a breaking of traditions to throw her down. Dana, her finally is, and of course, you viewers would have needed to watch this, but Dana, her finally goes, "This you cannot do this. This is the
He
giving
said,
back."
"This is your custom, not mine. No money, no marriage." And so he
Right.
takes out the dowry and slaps it on the wherever it was, a table, and says, "Well, here's your bloody money." And that's when they throw the money in the furnace and the fight starts.
And the throwing of the money in the furnace is fascinating. That is so meaningful. He finally stood up for her in his own way. It didn't feel like he was
Yeah.
he still was just throwing her away almost, but he somehow, but then there's the money. He picks up the money, which is maybe at least respecting the tradition. And they both knew what to do with the money.
Yes.
It was unspoken.
She opens
Open,
the door to the furnace. He throws it in.
and she's a changed woman. And it's funny how, in some respects, rocks how thick John Wayne's head was, because he could be just as thick as, because it took finally, she then smiles, "I'll have supper a waiting for you," and walked, and then you realize he's a changed man. All of a sudden he realizes this is what it took, and now he will fight for her. And what a fight.
One of the best one of the best fights in the movies. And it reminds me a little bit of the fight in McClintock. If you remember that film, much later, it was a western.
Right.
It was the same thing. I think Ward Bond was in that as well. And the big fight where they are just going from Danaher's place all the way to downtown before they're done. And of course, the entire town is taking bets on them, including the priest, which was objected to, I understand, later on. But the whole thing becomes,
Right.
the talk of the town.
Right, right. Yeah, and it's interesting even at the end of the fight, um, because he finally gets through his thick head somewhat, at least what the dowry meant to her, and she, now that the dowry has been accepted, um, I'm not sure if she'll ever see, because I'm not sure his point of view that he killed a man is still unspoken.
Right.
I'm not sure
That's
he
true.
will. If she, that's going to come after the marriage and years later when he finally tells that she'll find that story or something. But she just can't quite get that point of view. But at least we're able to go more than halfway, have the fight. One thing we were talking about too is the views of critics. One critic feels that McBride, a critic named Joseph McBride,
Hmm.
written a lot of good books. John Ford, he's written a book on Billy Wilder. Um, the but in his point of view, she in some respects fairly liberated throughout the film, because just in her actions you can say it's traditional, it's a dowry, how archaic is that, but the way she does things is so flamboyant and strong, that the way she does things, it's kind of performative and very active in her own
There's
way.
a good sequence in there, and I have the quotes here.
Ah,
She says to him, "It's a bold one you are. Who gave you the leave to be kissing me? So you can talk," he says. "Yes, I can, and I will, and I do, and it's more than talk you're going to be getting if you make a step closer to me." He says, "Don't worry, you've got a wallop." She says, she says, "You'll get over it, I'm thinking." He said, "Well, some things a man doesn't get over so easy."
oh, that is, no, that is a woman who is going to find her own voice. That is a woman who's going to stand up for herself, and that of course becomes the big at the end of the film. That how are we going into a degree of being archaic? Because like one critic says that, funny, both critics will say that she stood up for herself, but then at the end, one critic says she goes back and becomes too tradition bound. You think about during the fight, this woman, or no, not during the fight, but while John Wayne is dragging her to Danaher's place, um, a woman gives John Wayne's character,
Yeah,
Sean, a stick. You can use this to beat your wife, and that just sounds, today that sounds awful.
yeah,
But at the end of the movie, she throws that stick away after the fight when they go back to their cabin. She throws that stick away, To
Yeah.
me, that means a lot. She's saying, and as we discussed this too, how the other critic felt that it was more, one critic feels like it's more performative, that there's a lot of irony in, and this is one thing I wanted to ask you too. When she goes to the train, yes, she's hurt. And but one critic was saying she's almost setting this up as a performance. She goes from, there she is at the end of the train car. Do you think she knows she's going to be discovered? Like this is a performance to get John Wayne
I
to
think she hopes
finally,
so. I think she
yeah,
hopes so.
yeah, yeah,
She's made her final shot, basically. You're either with me or against me, kind of thing. And
right.
I think she's perfectly willing to leave, but she hopes him comes after her.
Which is a strong thing to do. She's willing to
Yes.
leave for her values, and she hopes she comes. And so, yeah, and then he does. And then after that, because then there is kind of a performative quality, like I'm doing this to achieve a certain end on her point, instead of being desperate. I think maybe it's surprising to her when she's thrown down. That is surprise. That's a hard thing to take when John Wayne throws her down to her brother's feet.
Yeah.
But then when he picks up the dowry, they both know what to do with it. And it's a little performative on her part. Is like, okay, I've got you, not I've got you now, but everything's right, and I'm going to make you supper. You have fought for me in front of this village. I have my dowry. You've done your job. You fought for me in front of everybody, and I'm going. And that, you could. One critic says that that's kind of subservience, but when they get together, like you mentioned, how did you feel when they got together? When after the fight, uh, Victor McLaglen, and they become friends in the fight. In a sense, there's a level of respect
Oh
they
yeah.
gain, and they come back for dinner. How did you feel about that dinner scene
Oh, I
at the
liked it, and
very?
it did absolutely show that Mary Kate was in charge here. He comes in and he says, "I have brought the brother," and they're both drunk, and oh gosh,
She says, what did she say? He comes in. He comes in. He comes in the room. Her brother comes in the room, and she says, "You better clean your shoes." What is it?
wipe your
When it
feet.
when
Yeah, just
wipe your feet. And
yeah.
it meant
Oh,
that
here it is.
she
Here it
was
is. I have brought the brother home to supper. She says he is kindly welcome. He says, "God bless all in this house." She says, "Wipe your feet." Thank you, Mom.
a woman is in charge in Ireland.
Yeah.
The men are kind of the exterior, but in the of the home, but in the heart of the home, where things are run, a woman is in charge, or there'll be no supper tonight. That's another
Yeah.
famous line.
There's another one. There's another one where Micheline comes in as the matchmaker.
Ah, yes.
He says, I have come," and she says, "Oh, I can see that, but from which pub was it?" Pub, you've the face of an angel with the tongue of an adder. I have a good mind to go about my own business and tell Thon Shorten he's better off without you.
I
So
don't know.
Thon
That was
Shorten,
the lines were he was unbelievable. But you're right, that matchmaker. You go back to that. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely. I mean, you're not going to say you're watching Maud at all.
yeah,
This is not Maud or Mary Tyler Moore, but it's an interesting film, and like Ford does, I think Ford's critics will get mad at some of the superficial stuff, but if you really look at what he's doing, he he's there's a lot of undermining he does of and making it at least question, is this the world we should live in? Is what should we really do about things? You look at the Searchers, and there's a good story of a guy trying to run it in the early 80s in a college campus setting up in Maine. Tries to and the kids are just booing because they think John Wayne is such a racist in the film. And
yeah,
the thing is, he is a racist in the film, but the film doesn't position racism as something that is good. Here, there's maybe
yeah,
some parallels to the way he presents things in this film. In The Searchers, we're watching a character, revered, loved actor
yeah,
who's playing somebody that's awful. That makes us think about ourselves. What do we stand for? and maybe you have to, if John, you have to think hard and maybe say, John Wayne standing for racism, what does that say about us? And I think there's John Ford's constantly doing things like that.
Yeah.
And so his films, oh yeah, they're like peeling back an onion. There's a lot of layers to his films that make you think.
Yeah, they make a few references to the um, the IRA. In fact, they mention the Irish Republican Army
Right.
in they refer to it in one scene where McLean says he's going to go into town to talk a little treason with his friends, and another one where the people who are around before they start the fight, he says, "So the IRA's in this too." Danaher
That
says.
was fascinating. That
Hugh
was
Forbes, if it were a red wheel Danaher, not a scorched stone to your fine house would be standing. And McLean says, a beautiful sentiment.
right, right, and that's again speaking to John Ford.
Yeah,
He could see both points of view. He doesn't, I think sometimes you look back at the Informer, and you'll think, oh, he was completely pro IRA, and I don't think he was. I think he would say there's people on both sides, passionate people with points of view,
yes,
and in a sense, that's where we are with this film again. John Wayne's film, Sean's point of view has got to be hidden. He doesn't want anybody to know that he's killed a man, but he's got a
yeah,
point of view. She's got a point of view that he's got to understand, and gosh, that I mean, understanding each other's point of view is critical. It's where we are now. You said we're not a political podcast, but we're it's understanding others' point of view is always important, and it's definitely where we are now. And John
yeah,
Ford had his finger on that in every film. So many films have his finger, and he's all. And I love another thing about John Ford. He's always in favor of the little man. He's watching out for the little guy
yeah,
constantly. And yeah. The one of the my favorite shots in the film, John Ford was always cutting dialogue. You look at the script process; he loved to cut dialogue, and
yeah,
I thought you could have had a ton of exposition about that Sean had killed a man in a boxing ring. We don't know
yeah.
any of that until you get that incredible cut. When he's first hit,
Yeah.
when he's
Flashback.
hit
Yeah.
by, yeah, Victor McLaughlin. We see John. When you think about it, there's John Wayne, laying down. The way they show him, it kind of looks like a boxing match, and then you cut to John Wayne, to Sean looking over somebody that now we're in a now we're in a boxing match.
Yeah.
We're in the ring, and that was such a shock cut to maybe 20 years ago. Just incredible, and it
Yeah. Yeah.
sells us so much. We did not need a lot of exposition after that to know what had happened.
Yeah, I think so, and I think one of the things that we haven't talked about is that in any kind of good story, you have someone who has changed between the beginning and the end, and
Right. Yeah.
frankly, nobody in Innisfree has changed one iota of what they were, but Sean himself, he's found a way to leave his past behind him.
Right. That's and and yeah, and maybe she found a way, and he also found a way to understand another's point of view,
Yeah,
leave his and to understand. He's so sure of who he is. He's got this bitter past,
yeah,
painful past that probably made him even more sure of who he is and what he's never going to do again.
yeah.
And so yeah, and so that arc he's got to make that change, and that's it's beautifully done, and
The
it's done
fight
through
scene was
action, not a lot of
greatly
words.
the action though the fight scene was one of the best of the movies as we mentioned earlier, and they had actually one of John Ford's kids do stunts because by this time Victor McLaughlin was not in the greatest of health and could not
Right.
do anything too physical. So it's not. That's why it's a long shot where he's being thrown in the creek and that kind of thing. It's Ford's son standing in, Patrick, I think was his name, standing in for John McLaughlin. But
It works. Yeah.
it goes on for the longest time, it seems like, and then they end up in the pub,
Right.
and they stop, and John Wayne indicates, you think we should stop for a little breather? He says, I'm fresh as a daisy. He said, look more like a black-eyed Susan. But they go into the pub anyway. And then from another viewpoint, you have Reverend Playfair and the bishop who's in town. And he says, are they going into a public house? He said, yes, your lordship. And are they going in? He said, yes, your lordship. Does that mean the fight is over? No, your lordship, it's just the end of round one. So, and
then is that when they place the bet?
once they're in, no, the bets have been going on from the beginning, from the time
between the reverends, between the bishop and the, because yeah, that
well,
bet.
yeah, the bets all over town.
Yeah.
So the inside now of Cohan's.
Right.
And he says, what a day for Innisfree. On a day like this, I can only say one thing. Gentlemen, the drinks are on the house. And everybody goes silent. And he says, well, they are.
I guess that's because that never happened. Yeah,
No, it never happened before.
then,
I know someone that owns a tavern that's like that. If it gives you free water, it's amazing.
yeah, and then the refusal complete. They still can't see each other's point of view because Sean wants to pay for the drink. I won't take your money. Victor will not accept the money, and that, of course, I think that sets off the next round of fighting. Who's going to pay for the drink?
Yeah.
even after,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, there's that too.
I love that line. I think this happened before they go in the pub, but when they talked about Marquis of Queensberry rules, and John Wayne, here he punches him, calling him, there, here you go, Marquis, and hits him.
Well, interesting, Victor McLaglen in his earlier days was actually a fighter in, I think, the military, and so they did for the camera's sake these roundhouse punches rather than the short ones that you would do in a boxing ring, which is interesting. They didn't do it by Marquis of Queensberry rules by any manner, but
and it matches. You know what? That's one of the best. I never thought about him having a stuntman at all. You'll see Mannix's stuntman. I watch Mannix sometimes on BTV, and you'll see Mannix's stuntman come in, and Mannix is in better shape than Victor McLaglen. You'll see Cannon's stuntman step in, but no, I never realized. I never even thought about it. It just sells completely that this fight is one fluid 9-minute event that stops for a round of drinking, stops at least 2 or 3 times, and then resumes, and then somehow at the end they just, I can't even.
Well, they fight over who's
going
to pay for the drink. No, I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to let you buy my drink. I'll pay, and they end up knocking each other's money off of it until they just start punching each other again out of the pub.
Out of the pub. That's exactly right.
It
and
ended
then somehow
soon after
they got
that.
their arms around each other.
Yeah,
it just kind of evolves.
Yeah. That's when they come home drunk, and that's the wipe your feet scene and that. And so, they've settled with each other. Sean has dealt with the burden from his past, and everybody's happy.
Right. And everybody's happy. He has been able to.
And they end the film with the bishop driving away with them all yelling like Protestants.
Yeah. and then cut back and then they cut back, like you mentioned, where
they cut back to John Ford's brother who's raising his cane.
Right. Oh, that's right. Raising.
Yeah.
And then, but then we believe so much in the togetherness, the communal feeling of this little village, that we don't really know how is it possible. Then we cut back to Maureen O'Hara and John Wayne, and they're waving. It feels like they should be waving, but when you really think about where their cottage is, how can they be? Who are they seeing when they're waving?
No,
but they're
waving. They're waving at theater audience is what they're doing. And
I think you're right.
But there's a little story there. John Ford wanted her to say something to John Wayne that would make a reaction. Something he didn't know that she was going to say that would make him startle. And so he gave Maureen O'Hara the line. She said, I couldn't possibly say that to him. And he said, you do it. And she made everybody swear that nobody else would know the line except for her, John Ford, and John Wayne. And so what she whispered in his ear, his reaction was a real one. And then they go into the house.
Do we
So
know what it was?
no, she died
No, we
without
still
ever
do not.
telling anybody what it was.
Oh, and whatever it was delightful because he literally skips across the rocks. They kind of skip together. It's a happy marriage. And
Yeah,
just prior to that, just prior to the whisper, I think that's when she threw away the stick that's
yeah,
used used it, and she says it's like not in this marriage, and it's oh my goodness, it's amazing, and a real coming together of two souls, and wow, just and
yeah.
it makes you wonder. Yeah, I love that coda. They could have probably not even had that, but it just works. And I think you're right. They're waving at the audience.
Yeah, they could have finished the picture with the old man, and
Yeah.
it would have been a good tribute to him because, of course, he died about 2 years after this film was made. But
Oh, yeah.
he was 71, I think. I
Right.
would consider young these days, but
That's true. That,
yeah,
but not in 1950. After the life he'd had. And yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But
yeah.
you're
The
right.
the
He's an
the
actor and
town.
director.
Yeah, the town did not have electricity at the time that they were filming this. By the way, it only got electricity that year, and most people in the town were happy about it because they thought they wouldn't be charged for it. When they found out, they decided they didn't want it.
Speaking of traditions, that's exactly.
But you can see poles every once in a while, but they don't have any wires strung across them just yet.
Ah, that's interesting. That I never thought about the watching for the polls. That is fascinating. There's just so many things. The one thing that's kind of, and I know we need to we're working on our way, but the continuity. John Ford apparently would keep the idea of continuity, how actors are dressed, how everything. He was brilliant at it, and one and there's another story of how continuity is broken in the film, but in
Yeah,
one classic continuity where you get a door closing, it starts to close from one perspective of the set, and then we see it the same door closing or opening from another perspective of the set. What happens to the viewer, for the viewer, what the director's trying to construct is that sense of continuity because we're watching something move, and the movement on action, a match cut, movement on action from one shot to the next. And this is a minor thing, but in the outer room of the hotel, or it's kind of like I guess it was the hotel when Sean first comes to the village and he's got his sleeping bag, and you've got the
yeah,
two younger kind of religious acolytes that are both kind of talking about him, and they finally feel like he's what's this bossy yank? He's telling us what to do, and
yeah,
and they kind of say, "What else will there be, Governor?" And John he kind of catches that, and then he goes into the next room. The next room is more a shot of the tavern, from one angle, and the door cuts, and that match cut of the door as John Wayne walks through it keeps that continuity from one place
yeah,
to the next. And
yeah,
I thought, wow, that just and you really, it's like things you've mentioned, the way they shot even the Enterprise. They wanted it to feel cohesive and whole. And
yeah,
and in the first Star Trek the Motion Picture, they made it completely, and it made it hard to shoot. But they were trying to get that cohesive feeling of
yeah,
coherence and
yeah.
cohesiveness, and that simple door shot does that, connecting the outer room of the pub to the pub itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, continuity is. What did you think of the music in the film?
They say Maureen O'Hara had the music playing on her deathbed. It's very good stuff. It was
Oh,
it was
outstanding! Yeah,
perfect.
she even has a song. It's funny
She
back in this
actually
time.
sings.
She actually sings. That's wow, beautiful song. And I mean, every layer of this film makes you think because she all of a sudden is singing and she hits a line that makes her think. It's kind of like all of a sudden she hits a line, and I will admit I can't remember exactly what it was, but you can she's singing.
Yeah,
She's finally got the little, and all of a sudden she realized, wow, this applies to us. And just
yeah,
the songs are so organic. Of course, Kent Curtis's song is how could it's one of those, it's like those classic Star Trek songs where it's singing about a Vulcan there. What there is a Vulcan on the ship, or back in the Charlie X episode. That's Ken Curtis
Yeah.
is singing. There was a man that came from. I can't remember the
Yeah,
words, but it's
that was
describing.
actually a traditional song. The oh, young colonial boy, I believe. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, it sure fits. I thought I was thinking it perfectly fits
yeah,
Sean's character.
yeah. It
Ah,
does, because I would have thought so too, that it was written for the movie, but it's very old. It doesn't.
it's an which.
It's traditional. They don't have an author for it.
Thank you, Professor B. That figures. It's good to know, and it's an
And
interesting line, a colonial boy on that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
totally worth your while. 2 hours and 29 minutes. The last 29 minutes were critical. Did we mention where Republic wanted to save money? And we don't want to spend another 20 minutes of film, actual film. We'll go over 2 hours. That's a big thing. And what was it that John Ford did when they were running the film?
Oh,
They did it.
yeah, yeah. The people at Republic, among other picayune things, they didn't want the film to be over 120 minutes. They said people won't sit in the theater for more than 120 minutes. And the film came out to 129. Said you'll just have to cut 9 minutes out of it. He said, "I've cut everything that needs to be cut out of it. It's perfect as it is. We're not going to be able to cut anything out of it. No, you get out there and cut it." And so they just cut the last 9 minutes off the film, which of
The
course
fight.
was right before the fight started, and so the screening stops, and they said, "Well, wait a minute, this fight scene started. How's it end?" "Well, you want to see the rest of the picture or not?" And so they let him keep it in.
Critics would have loved that. I mean, your kind
Yeah,
of modern art critics would, and I respect where they're coming from, but imagine where that ends. It ends where they put the dowry money, they burn the dowry money, put it in they close the door. She says, "I'll have your dinner waiting for you," and she
yeah,
goes through the people. That's the end of the movie. That would have been wow, and enigmatic, and
yeah,
but yeah, that what a great case to make for your additional 9 minutes. That's
yeah,
without it, there's no fight. Yeah, that's so it's worth every bit of those extra. Was it 29 minutes or no 9 minutes? It's worth every bit
yeah.
of the
Every 9 minutes, yeah.
yeah.
That seems to be such a picayune thing uh, to be arguing about. Just
Yeah,
another nine
yeah.
minutes, but there you go. Well, we're out of time. We need to go, but an old friend of ours used to say, said to his wife, "We better go to bed. These people may want to go home." So
Right.
we're out of here. Thank you, Professor O. You're going to be away next week, though, right?
Right.
So
Unfortunately, yes.
yeah, but we will regroup, and we've been talking about wanting to do westerns, and I have been from more than one person wanting us to do the oh goodness the Sean Connery picture on where he's the sheriff on Io. Remember that one?
Outland. Was that
Outland, yes, Outland, and I
Yeah.
think maybe we can compare and contrast to High Noon, which is a good classic western.
Oh,
So maybe we can
completely.
go that way in a couple
Oh,
of
it's some
weeks.
interesting thoughts there. And John Wayne had an opinion about and John about High Noon
Yeah,
too. It's got
yeah,
that sounds great.
everybody did. Yeah.
Yeah,
So something to look forward to. That's in 2 weeks, and so
hundred
thank
percent.
you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
You got it.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back next week with more Babylon 5 stuff and who knows what. So thank you for joining us. Until next time, don't go far.